we are live now, but I spent 10 minutes talking to Grace once, and then we realized actually nothing's happened. We haven't gone live yet. Hi, Florence. Lovely to see you. So we'll just wait and see who's around, who's going to join for a minute. Uh, Seema. Hello, Seema. I hope I said that right.
I scratched my throat this morning, so I've got a glass of water next to.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. Don't worry. I just had a cup of tea, so I'm all right for a minute. Okay. I don't know. I expect more people will join as we go. And also, the replay goes out more or less straight away now. So, Sook, is that Sook? Hi, Sook. Yeah, so the replay goes out almost straight away. So people tend to watch the replays more now than because there's so many lives that are going on at any one time. Hello, Bob, my friend Bob. Brilliant. Okay, so I will just introduce myself for anybody that doesn't know me. I'm Sue Reid. My publication is Confidence Matters. I talk about confidence, obviously, but I've been talking a lot lately. Hi, Florence again. Yeah, so I've been talking about as well as confidence, I've been talking about boundaries and living an aligned life lately. So I'm getting a little bit deeper into mastering confidence rather than just building confidence. So that's me. And I forgot to ask you, do you want me to call you T or Terry or?
Um, that's perfectly fine. I went with TW with my publications just because that was my mother's way of getting a hold of me when I was in trouble. So I
All right, TW. Okay, so we'll call you Terry then. So, would you like to introduce yourself? Because this is your second only live, so you're a little bit nervous. Will be nice.
on my hands, everyone. So just to let you know, but no, my name is Terry Lacrosse. I go by TW Lacrosse on Substack. Like I said, because TW was how my mother would call me if she was inquiring whether I was in trouble or not, or I wanted to own it as she was the catalyst for the whole Substack process for me. So I thought I will own this. And so my name's Terry Lacrosse. I write on Substack currently. I was on a previous platform for a while, and everyone just kept saying, "You need to write your book. You need to write your book." So I started exploring where I could archive really everything that I've been writing, um,
Mhm.
thoughts, and the things that I've been doing for decades. Um, so I spent 34 years as an IT health professional, information security. I really enjoyed that. We went through COVID. I left. I ended my career there to focus on some health issues. At the time,
Okay.
there was a little bit of um, helping my mother transition at that time as well. She'd gotten cancer and then
Oh,
actually got cured and got COVID. So it was
oh no! Oh no! Because I guess her immune system was still weak.
absolutely.
Mm.
So it was a very transitional time. And so while I was doing that, I wanted to be able to focus on the things I needed to focus on, right? And
Yeah.
part of that was how I, ex- I had spent my entire life in the creative sort of space. I have totes, seriously, a basement full of totes that are filled with journals from when I was a
Wow.
kid. My first journal was from my grandmother after my father passed, and
Oh.
so I just kept writing, and it was how I could process everything.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people find that because because I started journaling, I mean, I don't journal so much now. I kind of do it a little bit and go back to it and leave it again. But I meditate a lot, which so I kind of sort myself out in my head now. But I think I started journaling when I was in my previous marriage that ended, well, I would say it ended badly. It started badly. It was just bad from the beginning to end. But a friend said to me, well, journal about you need to make notes, like journal about what he's doing, everything he says, the way he treats you, because if anything went to court or anything like that, if you had to take out an injunction, you need some evidence. So, luckily, I never needed it, but I found that by journaling, I was kind of tipping the issues out of my head onto the table so I could sort through them. And I think that's what journaling is. It's just a way of stepping back and looking at life and your issues, or just anything, your feelings, anything that you want to examine, and just, breaking it down and working it all out. So did you find that as well?
Ease. Um, you want to journal your passion, you want to journal the poison, and you want to journal the process.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What I was focused on.
Brilliant. So today you said you'd really like to talk about becoming and what that means at this stage of life. So just first of all, then tell us, what is becoming to you? What does that mean to you?
So I think what it is for me is it goes back to, you know, Buddhism and sort of the unfolding, right? We don't ever
Mhm.
arrive. That was the interesting thing that I learned in my life, and probably more recently than I care to admit. I didn't realize that becoming wasn't a destination, but
Mhm.
the process, right? And
Yeah.
so, I don't feel like I will ever finish coming, but I wanted to talk about it because I think there's some important things that happen with creatives in the in that process of becoming, right?
Mhm.
It, for me, the process always starts off with I get this sort of idea or this attention grabbing thing, whether it's a word or a lyric from a song or something I see like art. I love art. And so um, that grabbed a hold of me. And then it's my attention to that details, right? That they're in there. And then that then jettisons over to sort of this growth process. You
Mhm.
learning, you start growing, and then if you're really good at growing, you can actually potentially transform, right? And so transformation, I'm going on and on about it,
No, you carry on. Yeah.
but the transformation part of it for me is the most amazing part. People who can change back, but people who transform are like the caterpillar into the butterfly. There's no
Mm.
back to the caterpillar. Once you transform, you're it.
Yeah. And so would you say, when you do transform, then would you say you're transforming to somebody different, or you're just almost like returning to yourself, like becoming the person that you're supposed to be?
Thing. So I also volunteer at a science center, right? So teach the kids all sorts of stuff. The interesting thing about a caterpillar when it goes into its chrysalis, when it emerges, it doesn't bring anything that it didn't take in. It doesn't.
Yeah.
So what it does is rearrange all the molecules. It rearranges itself. You'll notice that a caterpillar has some coloration that the butterfly then incorporates into the butterfly itself. So there's nothing more or less that happens in the catalyst in the chrysalis
Chrysalis. Yeah.
what happens emerges. So
Yeah.
me, um, there's a lot of folks I believe that grow up and never learn if that they just become bigger versions of themselves.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
then takes that learning and moves it into a growth process, and then takes that growth process, and it's layers and layers and layers, uh, and then takes those layers and then transforms into not something new, but something rearranged, something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, the caterpillar's life, it's quite, what it goes through when it goes into the chrysalis is quite horrific, really. It's like it's just mashed up, like completely destroyed, and then it has to build itself back together again. Which I
Uh,
guess, if you relate that to our lives, that's like going through, like, like the dark night of the soul, isn't it? You like really open up everything and then build yourself back up again.
so, I mentioned this a lot in my writing. When I lost my father, when I was 7, and then about a year later, my mother remarried. And those years, until I left home at 20 were not very easy years for a child,
Mm,
without going into great detail. But,
mm,
um, I think a lot of my readers can s can, um, can associate associate themselves with those sort of conversations that I have.
mm, mm,
And I always talk about I'm always so when you're writing, somebody would ask me one time, "Why are you sharing all of that?" And I said, "Because I want someone," because for the longest time I didn't. And then for the longest time, I wanted to make sure that the people who were coming to me who had no idea about my past or about my childhood, were coming to me with similar issues, with similar stories. And I'm like, but you're not alone. And so I think that is the biggest part of putting down on paper is not to, oh, show everyone my poison.
mm.
It's how do I transform this poison into gold? How do I transform it into that medicine that will heal some or help someone else in their healing? So
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Because, yeah, I mean, it's like, because you hadn't said your issues, but people were coming to you with the same issues. So it's like somewhere deep, like in subconscious, it was picked up that this is somebody I can relate to. I don't know why, but I just feel a connection.
people always tell me, I said, oh, well, thank you for sharing that, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, but you just felt like a safe person, and
Yeah,
that really that that really is I don't know very complimentary. But at the same time, I think it goes to a much deeper level that,
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
um,
It's just like, I kind of see it as a calling, like something inside, like your soul, if you like. Your soul is calling out to other souls without you knowing about it, or even understanding it, because we're not meant to understand that sort of thing. But I do believe that our souls call to other souls, and this is why we meet people and we have an instant connection. And our soul will also repel people. So, we will think, Actually, this person, I don't know why, but there's something about them I don't like."
a gut instinct, right? So, I learned recently that we have 2 hearts, the one that's in our chest and the one that are in our calves. They are the ones that
Yeah,
are our blood, but we also have, 3 minds. We have the mind here, we have the gut instinct, and then we have the heart mind.
yeah, yeah. And when they're all aligned, that's when you're in a good place. Yeah, your intuition's
Yeah,
working.
trust your gut.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think when I was younger, um, I had I just grew up not feeling loved by my parents, and I don't blame them for that, because it was a different generation. They were brought up in the war years. They didn't really, I think their parents didn't really have time to show any love, because they didn't know what was going to happen next in their world. They were trying to bring up their children in the middle of a war. And so times were difficult. So I don't blame my parents at all, but I did grow up very shy, very sensitive, and not have anybody that I could really talk to, that I really felt any connection, apart from my grandmother, who died when I was 8. So, and after my grandmother died, my mum fell into a depression. So I'd lost my mum as well, really, from that moment, because she was all right sometimes, but most of the time she was depressed. So I think at that time, the way I look at it is my vibration was quite low. And because my vibration was low, I was attracting the wrong sort of people, which is why it led me to bad relationships and ultimately a bad marriage. Um, there was, I had a story to tell that was like calling to me, that it wanted to be told, about the time when I was 17 and I was stabbed by a boyfriend and left bleeding in the street to die, well, in an alleyway to die, actually. And I couldn't write it. And but something was saying to me, look, you need to get this story out. It wants to be released. So the only way I could do it was just like going on a solo live and just filling my life out, and then getting, this huge reaction. And then repeating it again on a live I did with Margaret Williams and Bronze Rice. And again getting, all these reactions. And it's weird that it was asking me to be released. I mean, do you understand that?
So, so about 4.5 years ago, I was at the top of my game in the hospital IT world, right? So I felt like I was arriving. I was doing exactly what I needed to do. A medical issue popped up, and I knew that I could not do both of those things and succeed at both.
Mhm.
Step down from what I call corporate world. You'll hear that a lot in my writing. Uh,
Yeah.
I stepped down from corporate world and began at that point really just focusing on healing. And in that process, I also started writing about things that I had never mentioned before. It was um, it was just the catalyst, right, that
Yeah.
needed to happen. Um, it's an interesting thing. I'm writing currently about the Lenten wilderness, right, and then equating that through various um, parts of my own life where I was also in the wilderness. And I think that part of my life, that time, was definitely entering the desert if I wasn't already in the middle of that. My mother had started transitioning. She had gotten cancer,
Mhm.
and was at home maybe 6 months when I got the call from my brother, that she was in the hospital and actually in the ICU on her deathbed. And so, I had done a couple I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but, thank you for I had written a book, in 49 days, d still in, edit mode at the moment. I haven't released,
Okay.
but, um, there was an interesting thing that was happening. Personally, was I started dreaming in a very symbolic way prior to even knowing that she was passing. Uh,
Mm.
I started journaling that and posting it on the previous platform, and people were like, "Wow, that's amazing." And then 3 days later, I got the call from my brother that my mother was passing. Um, Prior to that, I had read the Tibetan Book of the Dead for about 3 or 4 folks in my life who have asked
Mhm.
previously. For some reason, I decided that was what I was supposed to do. Now she was I was raised a fundamentalist Christian here in, Southern Missouri. And so if she had known that I that on this So 49 days, walked her through the Bardo and, the varying Bardos, and in the process, I discovered an amazing thing is that the reciting of it, the prayers are really for the living, not for the dying.
I was gonna say, do you think you were doing it for you rather than your mother?
Halfway through, ended up I think it was all for me.
Yeah, 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 I get
Th
that.
there was a book that came out of that, about all of the stuff that happened back then and releasing her, right, and letting her coming to an understanding wasn't her fault. It wasn't his fault. It was the result. It was what I call the consequence, right?
Mm.
And in a couple of places, I called it the curse. But but yeah, it was an interesting thing. And at that moment, um, probably 2 years after that, um, I just started writing on well, about it was a year and a half it was a year in March. On March 2nd, is my one-year anniversary on Substack. So
Oh,
so I started writing and putting that stuff out there because I felt
yeah.
it could help someone, um, with through a similar situation, and maybe it could help heal them. I think, again, the process of my going through the Bardo with her was more for healing me than for her.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because, when we lose somebody, we have to go through a process, and, we all have our different processes, but we have to go through something to come out the other side. Otherwise, we're just holding it in, and that's not good.
Can you give me just a split second? I did not realize my phone was gonna drain this fast. I'll be
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. While you're gone, I'll just say hi, co-partner. Nice to see you here. So short intermission, talk among yourselves. Terry will be back in a second. Does anybody have any questions or anything or any comments at all that they want to ask? Oh, we're back. Yes. I think this has happened before. It's not the first.
So, I am usually more prepared than this.
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. It's your second live. You were a bit nervous. That's
Yep.
absolutely fine. Don't worry.
Alright, there we go.
There you are.
I'm gonna turn you upside down. Still there?
I'm here. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright. Nope. Alright.
Okay.
We're gonna do this.
We don't stand on your head, please.
Sorry about
It'll confuse people. Okay, so yeah, so where were we? Becoming. See, yeah, I like rather than growth, I like evolving because I think to me, when we say we are growing, um, it's it's like building on what you already are. So it's like
right.
kind of I don't know. I It's more organic to say evolving, I think. Growing is more a process, which is
Right.
good. But I like to think of myself evolving. And when I'm talking about confidence, I like to think of your confidence as evolving because there was no point in my life where I thought, okay, right, I am now getting more and more confident. I've looked back and I think, I'm confident. I'm more confident now than I was then, and then a few, like, months later, I'm more confident now than I was a few months ago. So you notice it, but you don't feel it, which is weird.
Right. It's sort of like you don't grow 4 eyes, right? Your eyes mature as from childhood to adult mature, right? You get better at seeing things, versus you don't get more eyes.
Yes, true. Yeah, 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 yeah. I like evolving. So, and like you say, when we're becoming, there is no fixed point that we've got to get to. We might
Right.
think there is. We might have this idea of like, this is where I want to be, which is fine, but when you get there, what are you gonna do next? Because you're
Right.
never gonna be the final version of you. Something is always gonna be changing. Um, and so it's not a fixed point. You just keep becoming, becoming, becoming for eternity.
I agree. I totally agree. I think it's an interesting thing where, especially as humans, we have a tendency to want to evaluate everything and then put everything can we put a label on it and then, throw this into a box? And, and for me, confidence was again in my previous understanding of it was an arrival. It was a destination. Oh wow, look how confident I am today. Um, but then not realizing that you'll be terrified again tomorrow because it's you've arrived at a certain point, but you're continuously improving that. And so I think that's an amazing thing about learning, growing, transforming. I think we as humans can express, maybe other species can express it, but I think that's a really amazing thing that we can express it, and then use that as our creativity in a creative aspect, right? I love country music, but a friend of mine
Oh,
said,
me
"Well,
too. Yeah.
like, well, country music's all sad." Well, no, not all of it, and so it's one of those things where confidence then leads to better creative outlets. And I
Mm.
think vice versa. I think creativity then leads to better and more improved confidence and becoming. I mean, um I have a ton of ideas and totes, right?
Like you
That
said.
never see the light of day, but at the moment, that I who I was at that moment needed to write it down,
Mm.
needed to express it the way it was expressed, and I often will go back, and I love picking up, the journal from 1978 and picking it up and seeing who that kid was, and like, "Man, that's terrible poetry," um that song will never hit ever, but, I think it's just an amazing thing to use that, as a catalyst for growth.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. See, when I was young, I never thought of myself as a creator. I kind of still don't. I guess I am, but I don't think of myself as a creator. When I was young, I used to write books. I used to make these. I think you've frozen, so I don't know whether you can hear me or not now, but I'll keep talking. I used to write books, like little, like almost comic books about because I was mad on superheroes. Um, oh, oh, we seem to have lost Terry. Maybe he'll be back in a minute. Um, he probably doesn't know how to come back on. Um, I will try and invite him, maybe. Uh, bear with. Okay. So I've invited him, so he may be back in a minute anyway. So I'll carry on talking just for the sake of the replay and the people that are listening, obviously. So, oh, don't worry, Edgar. I'm sure we'll find him. um, yeah, so I never thought of myself as a creator, but I used to make these little books about superheroes and invent people, and I really enjoyed that. And I used to draw them and write about them. And then our teacher told me I wasn't very good at, well, actually, a teacher embarrassed me in front of the whole class about one of my paintings. So I kind of stopped doing that. I stopped making these little comics and stopped. Um, I stopped writing for my own pleasure, but I carried on writing at school. I did English literature, and I loved books. I've always loved books. And just lately, obviously, I've started writing again, and that seems to be going quite well. And I've also started drawing again, which I haven't done in years and years. I wonder to what extent parents and home environments affect your perception as a creative. That's horrible. Yeah, Brandon, that's horrible for a teacher to do that. They should. Yeah, okay. So I'll address both of those. So my parents and home environment wasn't particularly good when I was young, and I couldn't really talk to them. I think my parents had problems of their own. I don't really, I don't hold anything against them, as I've said before. Um, but they weren't. They didn't show any emotion. I didn't feel like they loved me, so I think that. And I was very sensitive, very shy. So I think anything that anybody said to me had a huge effect when I was young. Yeah, my teacher, Brandon, was called Miss Smith. I can still see her piggy little face in my mind now. She did honestly look like a little brown pig, not being rude or anything. Um, and she held up my picture and just basically mocked me only because some of the paint had smudged on it. That was it. It wasn't that bad. She didn't need to be that nasty. And I think I was about maybe 10, maybe 8 or 10. So still quite, influenced by people that spoke to me like that. But I still think about her. Um, I don't know where Terry's gone. So um, we were talking about becoming. So Terry was saying about how he's got loads and loads of tote bags in his basement full of journals that he's been writing for a long, long time, aiming to make them into books, as I understand it, but still working on that, and writing on Substack. So I have sent Terry, another invite. So I don't know whether he'll come back or not. We have been on for half an hour though. So if he doesn't come back in a minute, we'll finish off. Um, I mean, from my point of view, becoming for me is to be, um, to become more confident every day. So starting out when I was young is very sensitive, very shy, and then going through bad relationships because I think I was looking for that love I didn't get from my parents. And so having some bad relationships, but 3 horrible relationships. One where somebody stabbed me and left me in an alleyway bleeding to death, but I lived, as you can see, and I was only 17. And then I suffered physical abuse from one partner, mental abuse from my ex-husband, and was left with absolutely no confidence whatsoever. So when I got up from that, and thought to myself, I can't go through another bad relationship. I can't keep doing this. I need to find somebody that I can live with on a one-to-one basis. So we're both on the same level, not somebody trying to control me or bring me down. And if I can't find that, then I'll just stay on my own. And that was my decision. And I did find somebody, and we will have been married for 28 years this year, this September. But I just gradually worked and worked on my confidence and became more and more confident over the years. But there's no, like, I can't pinpoint one day when I wasn't confident and then the next day I was. It was like a step-by-step process, which is why I talk now about taking everything step by step and not rushing into anything. Just evolve, just take each day as it comes, try and improve yourself little by little, but always from where you start. You are absolutely fine where you are, wherever that is now, you are fine. That's your starting place. So be grateful for where you are and just move forward from there little by little. And you may not get where you expected to get, but that's the point of becoming, as we were talking about with Terry, that you don't have a fixed point to get to. You just keep evolving from where you are. Thank you, Edgar. Very brave to be out there talking openly about it. I just think I've got to talk about it. I mean, my heart, my soul, I don't know what it was. My intuition told me that I needed to do this, to talk about these things, because there are other people, women, but men as well, who are going through these relationships where they really should leave, but you don't. You don't feel strong enough to leave. Well, I'll tell you how I felt about it. I felt that this is me. This is what I've deserved. I've brought this on myself. This is how my life's going to be. And then one day I thought, no, actually, my life is not going to be like this. I'm going to change it. But I know there are people that need to make that same decision. And that's why I talk about it. And also, I want to help people who don't have a lot of confidence. One of the main things I suffered from was social anxiety. So I think I'm going to start writing about that soon, about confident conversations, and having the confidence to have a conversation in the first place is a good place to start, and then working up from there. So if anybody's interested in that, you might want to follow me if you're not already, or subscribe if you're not already, which would be even better. I think we're going to end here because I don't think Terry's coming back. I don't know. I don't know what we did to him, but he seems to have died, or not died literally, but his internet's died, and he's not coming back. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you for being here. So thank you everyone for being here, and everybody that's watching the replay. And thank you, Terry, and bless you so much for being brave enough to come on for only your second live and talk very openly. But then your internet blowing up or your phone or whatever happened to you. So thank you. And I'll see you all soon.